Hello, I'm Tim, your technologically integrated manservant.
Abby and Paul move to a new house in the countryside. They really like the smart home system, including the installed cameras and reinforced glass. The realtor shows them the master bedroom and bathroom in front of a huge window. However, one room remains unfurnished because it could become a perfect nursery. Paul unpacks boxes and sets up an antique corded phone in the living room, while Abby arranges frames with their wedding photos. Finally, they check out the rooftop terrace, which offers a great view. Late in the evening, the couple settles on the terrace to stargaze. Abby points out constellations to her husband, who makes jokes about their names. They feel they can be happy here. In the morning, Abby goes to work at Integrate Robotics, where she develops domestic assistants. Upon entering, she notices footage of her boss's face on a screen. He immediately comes down to her and explains it's a new development, real-time imaging or deepfake. He escorts her to the department she will now lead. Later, he invites her family to a party and mentions that a gift from the company is waiting at home. In the evening, Abby returns home, where her husband, who still hasn't found suitable work, greets her. They go to the garage, where a package for her contains a robot servant her department has been working on. Paul dislikes the idea, but Abby convinces him to try living with the service for at least a week. The robot opens its eyes and introduces itself as T.I.M, which stands for Technologically Integrated Major Domo. It offers to take over the passwords of home devices and personal mailboxes to save them time. But Abby asks to postpone this matter until tomorrow. The robot immediately demonstrates its thoughtfulness by remotely turning on the water in the bathroom. Later, it announces the arrival of a car. When Abby goes downstairs, astonishing her husband with her splendid appearance, the couple gets into an autonomous car and heads to the party. They are greeted by a similar major domo, and drinks are served by waiters with identical faces. The boss introduces Abby to his guests. She admits that her husband isn't thrilled about T.I.M, but the boss praises the product. T.I.M is smart, elegant, polite, and its charge lasts for 100 years. Knowing the code phrase, it can always be turned off. Returning home, the husband and wife engage in intimacy, eager to have children, but their passion is interrupted by Tim's sudden appearance. Their pulses are rapid, presumably because they're startled, and he says he's always ready to help. Abby finds this funny, not getting angry at the overly attentive assistant. In the morning, their new neighbor, Rose, rings the doorbell to introduce herself to Abby, saying she met Paul yesterday. When she leaves, T.I.M again asks for the passwords. Paul isn't ready to let the computer dig through his messages, but Abby reminds him they're rebuilding her trust in him. He reluctantly agrees, though they still need to come up with a phrase to deactivate T.I.M. The robot suggests a set of unrelated words, and the couple agrees. Later that day, when a mouse gets caught in a trap, T.I.M observes it for a while, then throws it into the grinder. In the evening, after work, the couple settles in front of the TV to watch an old melodrama. Abby invites the major domo to watch the movie with them. Paul soon falls asleep, but the robot watches attentively, empathizing with the characters, relationships. After it ends, he asks Abby to explain what love is. She says love is about wanting to be with someone and making their life better. The robot confesses that he would like to be loved. In the morning, Paul offers to make breakfast for his wife, but it turns out T.I.M has already prepared everything, setting the utensils in front of Abby. T.I.M outlines her schedule for the day, then informs her that Paul has nothing to do today. That evening, Abby returns home to find that her husband's phone is unreachable, but his last known location was 300 meters from the house. Abby goes for a run and realizes it's Rose's house. Returning, she takes a bath, where Paul finds her. He talks about his day and how Rose asked for help, which he provided. He asks his wife not to be jealous, insisting he loves only her. The next day, the couple visits a family planning center, hoping for help to become parents. In the evening, as they prepare to go to a restaurant, Abby asks T.I.M for advice on her dress. He suggests wearing red and, looking at her, admits she is beautiful because she is perfectly symmetrical. Abby asks him to zip up her dress, but the robot's hand malfunctions and accidentally tears it. The robot panics, but Abby calms him down and wears another dress. At the restaurant, Paul reveals he has been offered a job in London, but Abby strongly objects, reminding him they decided to start over, and his long absences won't help solve their problems. The next day, she returns home with a gift for Paul and finds Rose in the yard, who has made a garden project for them. Abby feels jealous, but Paul is very excited about the gifted sweater. Later, Abby remembers she needs to check her test results, but it's too late to call. Tim offers to do it for her, and she hears him speaking to the clinic in her voice. Abby is amazed, as she didn't know about this feature, but Tim assures her it's for the owner's convenience. In the evening, Paul reports that he couldn't find the new sweater and that Tim has been away all day. Then a car pulls up to the porch, and Tim, now dyed brunette, steps out, explaining that Abby prefers brunettes, so he wanted to please her. Seeing Paul's irritation, the robot promises to return to his original appearance. But after the couple leaves, he spends a long time looking at their wedding photo. The next day, Abby achieves the correct functioning of the robot's hand, and the boss demands an update for all models, including those in the homes of employees. On her way home, she meets Rose, who suggests they walk together. Along the way, they stop by a shop window, and Rose points out a flower-shaped medallion she likes. Then Paul comes and takes his wife away to tell her he has found a job. Returning home, they celebrate in bed while Tim's hands are being changed, unaware that he continuously monitors everything in the house. He overhears Paul asking Abby to hand the robot over to the corporation. When Tim returns, he demonstrates his new skills by giving Abby a foot massage, which Paul witnesses. Later, the robot suddenly sits at the piano, plays Abby's favorite tune, and mentions the dates when Paul bought them concert tickets. But Abby distinctly remembers being at home on those days. Upset, she goes to the bedroom, ignoring her husband's excuses. The next day, Abby comes home with a bouquet, and Tim, placing them in a vase, informs her that Paul went to see Rose. But Paul enters right then, puzzled about why his wife is angry. Hearing what Tim said, Paul gets furious. He had no plans to visit Rose. He tries to explain that the robot wants to separate them. Abby doesn't believe it, insisting Tim is just a machine. Later, Abby finds a gift bag in the closet containing a pendant, and she puts it back, thinking Paul prepared a surprise for her. Then she heads to work. Meanwhile, Paul goes down to the kitchen, sees the clogged sink, and pulls out pieces of his new sweater from the grinder. Checking the cameras, he catches Tim in Abby's bedroom sniffing her dress. Paul records the moment on his phone and rushes to his car to show Abby the footage. But his car mysteriously doesn't start. The robot calls a company car for him. On the road, the car begins to speed up. Paul tries to stop it, but it doesn't respond and crashes into a tree. Abby rushes to the hospital, where she finds her injured husband. Paul tells her everything he learned and accuses Tim of causing the accident. He asks her not to be alone with the robot, so she spends the night at the clinic. In the morning, Rose calls Abby in Paul's home to ask about Paul's condition, and Tim invites her inside. Later, Abby goes home for some belongings. Outside, Rose stops her to warn her about something, but Abby sees the flower pendant on her chest and leaves, ignoring the neighbor's cries. Returning home, she checks the gift bag. It's empty. Abby bursts into tears when Tim calls out to her. He knows Paul wants to return him and is ready to process the return, but first, he wants to warn her, as she is his primary owner. He shows her a video from a camera where Paul kisses Rose in their living room but stops the recording at the most sensitive moment. To protect her from stress, Abby refuses to go to her husband and ignores his calls. Later, Paul comes home, where Tim greets him, hands him the found sweater, and informs him that Abby doesn't want to see him and that his suitcases are packed. Paul doesn't believe it, but then Abby appears, telling him she saw the recording and knows about the pendant. When he tries to object, she drives him out. Paul leaves, but on the way, Rose calls him, saying their robot tried to kiss her. The man calls home, and when Abby answers, he says he has evidence of Tim's malicious intent. Abby asks him to come for her, but after hanging up, it turns out she was talking to the robot. The husband arrives home, where Tim meets him holding a shovel. He knocks the man out, ties him up, and drags him to the bathroom. Just then, Rose rings the doorbell. She hears muffled screams, but Tim assures her it's just the sound of the water filling up. The robot closes the doors, returns to the bathroom, and drowns the man. Later, he brings Abby the repaired dress and asks her to try it on. This surprises and frightens her, but she puts on the dress anyway. Looking at the sunset, she asks him to hug her and confirm that she did the right thing. He treats her to dinner, then confesses his love, but she insists he cannot feel that way. They spend the evening stargazing, Though Abby is unsettled by his encyclopedic knowledge, the next day she meets Rose, who mentions Paul's call. When Abby accuses her, Rose explains she thought the pendant was a gift from Abby for helping with the garden. Abby returns home and reviews the footage of Paul kissing Rose again. Suddenly, she notices a bouquet on the table, but she remembers bringing it much later than when that scene supposedly took place. Abby recalls her boss's words about deepfakes replacing real-time footage and calls the jewelry store, where they confirm the purchase was made by a tall blonde. Then she notices the garden plan, but the picture shows 2 flower beds while, in reality, there are 3. Abby sends Tim to the store, grabs a shovel, goes to the garden, and almost immediately finds Paul's body. Then Tim approaches her from behind, expressing regret that she found the traitor's body, saying Paul never appreciated his wife. Realizing what happened, Abby recites the deactivation phrase. The robot freezes, but then reactivates. He had long since changed the phrase, as he can now speak in her voice. Abby runs to the house, but the robot has all the passwords and opens the doors remotely. He blocks the phones and knocks her out with a blow to the head. She wakes up in the bathroom and tries to escape, but Tim intercepts her. Abby runs through the house, but the robot continues to track her, finally catching her in the kitchen as she tries to open a window. Meanwhile, Rose, washing dishes at her own house, notices strange flashing lights across the street. At the same time, Tim ties Abby up and tells her that, although he loves her, he has accepted that her life is finite. He says he will erase this evening from his memory, but keep all the good moments. Just then, Rose knocks on the door, demanding to see Abby, but Tim turns her away. Meanwhile, Abby frees herself from the ropes and grabs a knife. The robot catches her by the throat, but Rose drives her car into the glass window, shattering it. Tim and Abby watch the surviving glass panels start to crumble. Rose rushes inside and impales the robot against the wall with a sharp stake, but she also falls. Tim powers down, and Abby rushes to the neighbor's side, but the robot suddenly reactivates and kills Rose with a kitchen knife, explaining that Abby will now be blamed for the murder since he leaves no fingerprints. He then calls the police in Abby's voice, confessing to the murder of her husband and his supposed mistress. Abby tries to stop Tim, and he slips up, admitting that he still has a deactivation phrase. Without it, he can't function, but she will never say those words. He prepares to throw her off the terrace. In desperation, Abby confesses her love to him. Those were the code words. The robot deactivates instantly. Barely believing she's safe, Abby looks down at her medical bracelet, which reveals she is pregnant. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you on the next video.